409 starts where the previous one left off, with a declaration of special martial law blaring through the speakers. The announcement goes on to clarify that this is due to an issue originating on the higher tiers, meaning that tiers 5 and 4 will not be affected in any way. From then on, as the tiers are listed, the instructions their passengers must abide by go from being draconian to a mild inconvenience. You see, the passengers on the third tier are ordered to immediately stop whatever they're doing, face the nearest wall, place their hands against it, kneel down, and remain in that position until they receive further instruction or risk getting themselves shot on the spot. Imagine you're on a public toilet when this happens. Do you risk your life to get yourself sorted and maybe get out of the filthy, reeking stall before you kneel down on the floor for what could well be dozens of minutes or more? Or do you just stop yourself mid-performance and kneel down right then and there? Passengers on the second tier are instructed to immediately return to their rooms, keep their doors opened, and sit down with their hands either spread out on the table or raised above their heads. Quite distressing and inconvenient, but at least you're afforded the decency of returning to your own abode. Finally, the VIPs of Tier 1 are instructed to return to their rooms and casually wait for an inspection. Once it is completed, they are guaranteed the same level of freedom they had before special martial law was enacted. Ah, classism. A quick note on this. The announcement occurred while the central stairway between tiers 2 and 3 was still open, and these two tiers seem to be the primary focus of the martial law announcement. Furthermore, I'm pretty sure that this isn't happening due to an incident on tier 1, since it was stated its passengers would be able to resume their daily routines unabated. And I don't think First Prince Benjamin would have missed the opportunity to confine his siblings to their quarters for a few days to get all his ducks in order, since the big guy does currently have quite a lot on his plate. All this points us to the conclusion that the incident which finally allowed Benjamin to enact martial law was someone illegally passing through the central staircase between tiers 2 and 3, with the most likely culprit currently being Crollo. While we know he can be incredibly subtle, it's possible he had no other options but to make a run for it, after deducing that his ideal partner was above him on tier 2, using either his preternatural speed or one of his many stolen abilities to vault it for the second tier. We know that he can change his face at a moment's notice by using convert hands, so he could have easily taken the likeness of someone from the crowd, gone through the passageway, and then used it again to escape the soldiers coming after him. Hell, he could have even used the ability to make someone look like however he looked when he made the run for it, thereby fooling the army into believing they had caught the culprit. At least until the effect of convert hands lasts. This would be to his benefit, since I'm sure he'd prefer to have the martial law rescinded as soon as possible, so he can move freely about. Back to the chapter, Morena goes on to confirm my suspicion that the enactment of special martial law was the risk she undertook by drawing out the negotiation game, with Bork immediately noticing Morena's heightened agitation at the fact that it happened right at that moment. Instead of opting to prolong the game in the hopes of increasing her chances of getting rescued, she instead pushes to conclude the game, judging the risk of getting herself killed in the ensuing crossfire or treated as a traitor and Morena's conspirator as greater than the chances of a clean rescue. She once again thinks to herself how getting the X card is her only real chance of survival, and goes on to choose the deal card, allowing her to return one of her cards back from the graveyard, in exchange for doing Morena a small request. You see, Morena reveals that a person must fulfill 3 conditions in order to become a member of her little murder cult. One is to answer the negotiation game with a yes card. Another is to be present at the scene where either Morena or another member is committing murder. And the third, which will be Morena's little request, is to infect Bork with contagion via a kiss. A deep kiss. Mouth to mouth. Once is enough, but they have to keep going until Morena's satisfied. And of course it gets off-screened, god damn it. Seriously though, the aftermath is actually kind of cute and really funny despite everything. I guess that's what happens when you've got 2 people with that specialist riz. By the way, while Morena realizing she stole Bork's first kiss could be a part of her ability, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to highlight her experience. Having kissing as an ability condition is bound to make you a pro. Who do you think would win a kissing booth competition, Morena or Baze? Immediately after following Morena's request, Bork chooses the X card to retrieve. Then, as Orage is about to grab the now 3 remaining cards and shuffle them, Bork stops him, requesting to first see the 2 face-down cards, since she couldn't keep tabs on them while getting canoodled by Morena. Yes, that is a real verb. Morena is hurt that her newfound lover of all of 5 seconds doesn't trust her. She said she wouldn't cheat after all, and yet the girl whom she kidnapped and is threatening to kill has the audacity to not hold her at her word? Some people. Bork is allowed to check, and upon confirming that the return and the no cards are indeed there, Orage proceeds to shuffle and place them face down once again. Bork then chooses a card to discard, revealing it to be the X card she had just taken back. This again leaves her with a return and no cards at her disposal. As the game slowly comes to a close, Bork chooses question A as her final card. This allows her to ask as many questions as she wants, with Morena only being able to reply with a yes, no, and a yes and no. Through this, Bork goes on to deduce that their hideout is between tiers 2 and 3, that there are 5 entrances to it, that the murder cult is currently 21 members strong, that Morena promises to not accost her if Bork manages to get out safely, that a no card would mean her death, that Morena's currently the only specialist among the 21 members, that she doesn't know all of their abilities, and so on. After a prolonged line of questioning, which continues off-panel, Bork goes on to confirm one final thing. Does there exist any chance of Morena altering her goal? Is there room for any kind of compromise? While I say confirm, I think pleads would do just as well here. Bork, while remaining intellectually resolute, has perhaps come to sympathize with Morena's motivation, and would prefer not to have her as an enemy, if at all possible. However, Morena goes on to unwaveringly reaffirm her nihilistically misanthropic end goal. Orage takes and shuffles Bork's 2 remaining cards, placing them face down in front of her. Bork chooses one and slides the other to Morena's side, telling her that they'll both flip their respective cards at the same time, saying to Morena that if she flips the return card, she'll forget everything that happened here and leave, while if Morena flips it, she, as in Bork, will be killed. Morena casually agrees and obliges. As they flip them, we see that Bork ended up with the return card, allowing her to exchange it for any card in the discard pile. And as the members start to make their leave, Morena is suddenly left stunned as Bork retrieves the yes card, confirming it as her definitive choice and fulfilling the second of the 3 requirements needed to become a proper member of Morena's murder cult. So, last review I said the following when Bork discarded the yes card. And it turns out it's the yes card, meaning that unless she has some unpredictable change of heart, Bork is no longer in danger of joining Morena's murder cult. I didn't call it, to be fair, but I did leave the room for the possibility of it happening, so I'll give myself half a point for that. Let's discuss what could have led to this unpredictable change of heart. Throughout most of the chapter, up until she gets tongue-tied by Morena, Bork remains consistent in her thinking that the X card is her only real option. However, sometime after the smooch, in my opinion during the question A round, Bork realizes something, which makes her decide against choosing X and instead viewing yes as the best option. While I can't know for sure, of course, I've got a theory as to what could have led her to this seemingly insane decision. See, the first thing Bork did after getting Netflix and chilled is to confirm that no one messed with her cards in the meantime, as that would have been the golden opportunity for it. She confirms that no foul play had occurred, thus being even more assured of Morena's vow not to cheat in any way. Then, as her line of questioning during the question A round progresses, Bork realizes that Morena has to slow down to think on a occasion, so as to not accidentally tell a lie and risk breaking her vow. Right after that, she asks Morena the following: if I get to walk out of here, the information you gathered will be voided and you'll keep your promise? Morena answers this declarative question with a yes, and a panel shows Bork thinking on that for a moment. She then goes on to confirm all the things I previously mentioned, the most important of which being that Morena doesn't know all the abilities of the other 20 members. See, since this declarative question was made during the question A round, Bork believes this will bind Morena to uphold whatever it was she confirmed at the time. Bear in mind, Bork's question was phrased as if I get to walk from here, not if I answer the game with the X card. Answering with a yes means that she'd presumably be allowed to leave the room, and as soon as she would, Morena would need to effectively void the game or risk breaking her vow. Now, while this does make sense, there are two things we need to establish before attempting to predict what will happen next. First, did Borksen cheat? When she saw that she had chosen the return card at the end of the game, she crumples it in her hands, later apologizing and saying she did it accidentally while overcome with relief. While that could have been the case, it's also possible that Bork marked the return card when she checked them following her tongue twister with Morena. You'll notice how her finger seems to just barely be touching the return card in this panel, meaning that she could have made a very slight indentation with her finger in it. You'll notice that as soon as Aurarge returns her cards on the table, Bork keeps holding her hand just above the spot where her finger had touched the card, most likely in an effort to keep Morena from noticing that slight indentation. As such, by crumpling it, she'd make sure her ruse wouldn't be found out. Supposing she did cheat, there are two questions that need to be answered. A. Was she allowed to? And B. How was she not caught? Regarding the former, there was not at any point a stipulation against Bork herself cheating. Morena is the only one under a vow to stay true to the rules of the game. Regarding the latter, yes, she was surrounded by 5 of Morena's people, but Bork established in the beginning that they wouldn't speak to either of the game's participants. Not speaking could be generalized to mean not communicating, so even if they saw what Bork was doing, they wouldn't be able to stop her or inform Morena, as this was a game just between the two of them. Instead, one of the reasons they could have been in there in the first place is to psych Bork out so that she wouldn't even contemplate cheating. But Bork's ability to stay calm and collected has been remarkably well established throughout these chapters. As such, my money is on Bork having indeed cheated, but that this fact cannot be used against her. Morena may pout though. The second thing that must be considered is whether Morena realized what exactly Bork's intention was when she posed her question about her being let go if she's allowed to leave. That question came in the middle of a whole slew of questions that may have very well lasted for minutes, and it's at least possible that that specific one may have slipped Morena's mind. However, even if it slipped Morena's, now that the game is over, one of those watching may point this out to her, so she doesn't make a mistake. If this does happen, my money is on Yokotani. Now, if Morena doesn't realize what Bork is up to and allows her to leave the room, that would mean that Bork has outsmarted her and won. Morena would need to let her go, and Bork would be free to leave while having the option of leveling up and attaining a Hatsu through killing people. Morena wouldn't know what it was, nor would she be able to influence what power she awakens, as Bork's line of questioning already established. While she may find this difficult, she is a soldier, and bear in mind that she'd be free to kill whoever she wished, and that there's no stipulation against killing other members affected by contagion. Also, keep in mind that in order to complete the third stipulation needed to become a member, Bork would need to witness either Morena or another member killing someone, meaning that she could start leveling up without fulfilling all the conditions to become a member first. This is what Bork is most likely after, thinking it to be her ultimate win condition. On the other hand, if Morena does indeed realize what Bork is attempting to do, she may decide to keep her confined to their current hideout, since her being allowed to leave at any point would trigger Morena's vow. As such, their optimal course of action would be to leave Bork here, have someone develop an ability or upgrade their existing ability into allowing them to manipulate her, bring a victim to the hideout and kill them there, thereby making her an official member, and then manipulating her into developing the ability they need her to. While Bork's plan would fail and she'd be stuck in quite a dire situation, she'd at least buy herself time, thus allowing for someone from the military, or preferably the mafia, or maybe even more preferably the Phantom Troop, to rescue her. And that's chapter 409 done. I've been thinking, and I'd find it hilarious if Morena knew Bork was cheating from the get-go, but that she did nothing about it since there's no rules directly stipulating that Bork can't cheat. Like, imagine that after Morena agreed to have Bork select which cards to discard instead of her, Bork just bended the X card in a very obvious way, effectively concluding the game from the get-go. Also, depending on how deep Morena's explanation on Nen went, Bork may be aiming to just become awakened to Nen through contagion and then do her best to naturally develop a Hatsu instead of forcing herself and volunteering for executioner duty. Though, as I said, that's not out of the question. What are your thoughts on Bork's decision? Do you think we'll see what happens next chapter, or will Togashi move on to another perspective? Do you think the next chapter will be the last one in this batch? As always, thank you very much for watching. Your feedback is always appreciated. I'd like to offer my thanks to Kamaswami for going the extra mile in supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.